Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our first Child Safety Pledge Parents Chat. I see as our participant numbers start to grow, thank you. It's great for you to be here. If you want to drop your name in the chat and where you're joining us from, it would be fantastic to see who we have with us this evening. It's really exciting for us to be kicking this off tonight with a group of amazing authors, and we'll get to them in just a minute, but we do again want to know and see who we have with us this evening. So, or wherever you are, because I see we have, let's see, Wisconsin, North Dakota, wonderful. West Virginia, great. Hi, Lauren. Good to see everybody. Ooh, New Zealand. Yes, thank you. It's good to see everybody here. Excellent. Well, for those of you who aren't familiar, Child Safety Pledge is actually powered by, and we say powered by Darkness to Light. It's a new brand, I guess, also of Darkness to Light. We started it in April of 2022. And we're really a national groundswell of parents and caregivers that are taking a stand to keep children safe. And what we believe is that just with a little commitment, engagement, and a willingness to be lifelong learners, that we can give children the safe and happy childhoods that they deserve. And it starts with a simple commitment, and we call that the Pledge to Protect. And if you go to the Child Safety Pledge website, and I'll put that in the chat here in a moment, we have a pledge that you can actually take. And it's just, again, it's just kind of that commitment, that further step that you're going to do what you can to help keep all of the children in your life safe. And then what we have after you kind of take that pledge is we have tailored safety information. So everything from every stage in your child's life, in your child's developmental stage, you know, with safety solutions from safe sleep and choosing a I think we have one on choosing a stroller, all the way to teen dating and when your teen gets their first job and conversations and things to do to make sure that they're safe when they're doing that. So we kind of have all of that covered for you. We also want to make sure that this whole idea of keeping our kids safe isn't overwhelming or intimidating. And so we have teaching moments, which are kind of little bite-sized videos that we've been producing and our curriculum team at Darkness to Light has been producing. And I encourage you to check those out. Everything on healthy relationships, what it means to be a safe adult, setting boundaries, being an LGBTQIA ally, again, all sorts of things for whatever you might need in your parenting or caregiving journey. And one of the things that we really wanted to do as well with the blog posts and those teaching moments is bring parents together to have these parenting chats and caregivers. And so this series is really just to talk about all different things with that underlying theme again of keeping kids safe. And just a few housekeeping items before we get started. You all participants are muted. If you do have a question, you can use the Q&A feature on Zoom, or the you can use the chat as well, because we're a small group, but if you want, you can use the Q&A feature, and we'll hopefully have time for questions at the end. Do know this is a safe place. We will be talking about some tough topics. If you do need to talk to someone, you can call 866-4-LIGHT or text light to 741-741. And I also want you to know this is being recorded, and it will be available on the Child Safety Pledge and the Darkness to Light YouTube channel after a few days after the event, because we do send it off for translation as well, for Spanish translation. So, if you want to be able to share the things that you've learned tonight with other parents and caregivers, you'll have that resource available to you. And just please be respectful at all times and refrain from inappropriate or harmful comments. And we ask you to keep your conversations relevant to this learning, or you may be asked to leave our discussion. But I don't think we're going to have any problems at all. But again, tonight I am joined by several amazing child advocates who have either published books or in the process of getting books published. And their books are all written about tough topics like body safety, prevention, and child sexual abuse. And I'm going to ask for each of them just to take a moment and introduce themselves first before we get into their books. So we will start with Kimberly King.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Kimberly King. I am the author of this book back here, I Said No, a kid-to-kid guide to keeping private parts private. And I am a mom of 3, sexual abuse prevention advocate and facilitator with Darkness to Light. I'm also a survivor of sexual assault, and I have a son who had an incident with a body boundary way back when, many years ago, which kind of sparked me writing the book. So I help parents talk about really tough topics so that they can get ahead of them and prevent problems before they happen and eventually protect their families.
Excellent. Thank you, Kimberly. And Crystal Lynn.
Hi, everyone. My name is Crystalyn Sanders Diggs, and I am a children's book author. I'm the author of Where Hands Go, a series of books designed to help parents talk to their children about body safety, consent, to hopefully prevent child sexual abuse. And I'm a mother and an advocate. And I'm not sure if this is the section where we get into why we started, but
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I got into this, this came to me a few years ago after a child close to me reported that they were being sexually abused. And as you know, less than 30% of children who are victims of sexual abuse come forward. And we sought justice, as the person was a member of our family. He's currently serving 56 years to life in prison. And through that healing came resources specifically for children of color. And that was my goal and my mission, was to increase the number of resources available to families and children of color. So my books include guides and resources, not just to educate children, but for parents as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Crystalyn. And thank you for taking that step. And thank you. Caitlin.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. So I am authoring a book. I am authoring it under a pen name. I am the mom of 4 and also the mom of a survivor of child sexual abuse. And so I'm really writing a book to fill a void. It'll be called Conquer with Courage, A Mother's Journey Through Healing. And essentially it's really to walk alongside moms in the early days. That was one of the things that for me years ago, when started to walk this trauma and this grief, there wasn't anything in this space. There's a lot of books written from a survivor's voice. There are books written by clinicians, but I was looking for, as a mom, trying to figure out, how do I get through tonight and tomorrow morning? And so through that process, I journaled in those very early days and found myself feeling like that was a resource that I wanted to support moms with. So I'm still on that writing journey and looking to obviously move forward with a publishing house in the near future. And so that's really what I'm doing to fill that void.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Kimberly Perry.
Hello, I'm Kimberly Perry, and I'm the author of the Say Don't Tell books, teaching boundaries and personal body safety to help prevent child sexual abuse. I've been married to my husband, Randall Perry, for 11 years, and he's the love of my life. We are the proud aunt and uncle of 3 nieces, 4 nephews, including triplets, and numerous second cousins. I have 15 years of experience teaching elementary aged kids in California, Michigan, and North Carolina with a Master's of Art in Teaching. I've taught preschool, 2nd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade classroom, as well as pre-K to 5th grade elementary health and PE. And today I'm a health educator teaching prevention education and personal body safety skills and tools for kids, grown-ups, families, and communities.
Wonderful. Thank you for being with us here today, Kimberly. And Megan.
Of course, somebody had to do that.
Oh, yeah.
It's me. Thank you so much for having me. So I got into this work back in 2002. I was a newly trained social worker and I got a job at a residential treatment center. I was very excited because I live here in Colorado and it had great opportunities to help kids get better through skiing and biking and rafting and all the fun stuff. I was just all ready to do some therapeutic recreation. And all the children that the girls in the program that I worked with, these adolescents had come from the Division of Youth Corrections. And so they had been sentenced to a 2-year commitment. And lo and behold, they had pretty much all been sexually abused. And I really found myself flailing because it's not really why I had gotten into this work, but I learned pretty quick that I needed to develop some expertise and really found a love for working with this population. It pretty quickly became apparent to me that these girls were struggling and had gotten to this point of being in juvie because they were not supported and believed by their families. And so I kind of pivoted and I started working for Child Protective Services back in 2004, and I've been with them for 19 years this month. So I've really dedicated myself to providing therapy to child sexual abuse victims. That's my actual position, but I do a lot of prevention work. I created a class and now it's available in a podcast, the top 10 things parents can do to prevent child sexual abuse. And after teaching that class for several years, the most common question I got from parents was, what do you recommend that we read to our kids? And I was kind of having a hard time finding books that I felt comfortable with. A lot of them, when I sat down to read them to my own daughters, I have 2 daughters, felt a little kind of, I don't know, scary at times. And, really, I don't know. I just wanted a book that would really empower kids and help them feel like they are the boss of their body. So that's what I wrote, Who's the Boss of This Body? I also have it available in Spanish here behind me, and I'll talk about that here shortly.
Excellent. Thank you, Megan. And Eliza.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, and I feel really lucky to be part of this panel. I'm Eliza Sultan. I am also a author. I'm working on my book. It's actually finished. I need to get the illustrations sorted out next. My book is, I came into this because I'm the mother of 2 children. My little niche in the world is child testimony, children who have to testify in court. My children were 4 and 7 when they had to testify in person in open court against their abuser, who was their father, is their father. And we were fortunate to get justice in our case. However, as we know, justice is bittersweet. And one of the things that I realized after this was that we couldn't celebrate our own justice without finding ways to help other kids who had been through a similar experience. And like everybody on here is saying, they were feeling a lack of resources available to help kids. I mean, I couldn't find anything to help my kids understand what was going to be expected of them with having to testify. So basically, my kids and I have been also working on a legislative initiative for the past 3 years in New Mexico, which is one of the few states that doesn't allow for remote testimony for children. And so it's one of 2 states actually. And so I've partnered with now 2 attorneys general to work on this legislative initiative, and my kids keep pushing me. They won't let me give up on it. And so the book is, like I said, it's done, and I just need to get the illustrations done and continue on this journey. I'm also a darkness to light facilitator, although I've actually found more of a niche educating parents on the playground than anywhere else. And that's led to actually a few cases that have happened because kids were able to come forward. So I kind of consider myself just a playground evangelist of child sexual abuse prevention, and that seems to be where I found my niche. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you all for sharing. And it's amazing. I mean, we have 6 different authors, 6 different perspectives, but 6, you're filling all the voids that are really needed. And someone did just ask if we can put the titles of your books in the chats. And so I would like for us to do that now and kind of talk about the name of your book. You can put the link in that, and also if you've got anything that we can look forward to from you as an author. And then we'll kind of get into some of the weeds of the actual resources and the meats. But Kimberly King, I know if you want to go, yours is I Said No.
Yes. I just typed it in there. My book is I Said No, and the best place to really find out about it is my website. So KimberlyKingBooks.com. Although it is available on Amazon as well. I do a lot of book sales directly to parents and schools, and I really love that because I can personalize the books, and I send little red flags, and I send just like extra stuff instead of just old Amazon. So yeah, that's where you can find my book.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that part of it. So yeah, that's great. If anybody else, Crystal Lynn, if you want to share yours as well. I know you put it in the chat, but
yes. My books are available on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, as well as my personal website, ksdiggs.com. I'd recommend purchasing on my website because I bundled them into a body safety bundle, which you can purchase. You can choose, which bundle you would like. So.
Excellent. And Caitlin, yours is
mine
process?
Mine is in process, but a lot of my content, I'm starting to get into my Instagram, and my website is live, launching soon with some of the content. So you can get a sneak peek of some of that. I'll drop that in the chat as well. And I'll drop the name of the book as well. But to get a sneak peek of the content before the actual book is published, you'll be able to go there to take a look.
Great, thank you. And Kimberly Perry, tell us a little bit more about yours, because yours are unique too.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm the founder of We Stand Guard, the program, which includes set 1 and set 2, and each of them have 3 Say No and Tell books in them. So set 1 offers a health education approach for the general or secular audiences, and they have purple titles. Set 2 offers the same approach with information for faith-based audiences, and they have blue titles. So all the books function as toolkits with options, so you can choose what fits your needs and your values. And what I'm advocating for is that personal body safety or prevention of child sexual abuse becomes a familiar term both inside the home and outside the home, similar to how we teach water safety, fire safety, traffic safety. So inside the home, I have Maisie the butterfly and Daxton the dolphin, a little hard to see. And these are children's books that are read aloud. There's a story section, and then there's 8 scenarios to role play. I researched what an abuser may try, and I turned them into 8 positive life skills. And then there's a solution section. It's recommended for ages K to 3, but I've had pre-K to 6th grade parents and caregivers tailor it. And then outside the home training is this training workbook, The Sunshine. And this educates parents and grown-ups working with children in boundaries and personal body safety within a church, school, sport, or youth organization.
Wonderful. Thank you. It's really comprehensive. Yeah, your program. Thank you. And Megan, I know you shared your titles in English and Spanish, but where can we find your books?
Yeah, they're both available on Amazon. Is the
Great.
best to get them.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
And then your training that you had mentioned as well.
Yeah, I can put the links to that in to the podcast in the chat.
Okay.
as well.
Yeah, that would be fascinating.
So it's 10 tips and for sexual abuse prevention. And so it's actually 10 episodes. Each one is about 20 minutes. And so it's just a way for parents. We found in our area, it's really hard for people to attend the classes. And so this way they can get, you know, a little bit of sexual abuse prevention while they're walking the dog or commuting.
Yeah.
And make sure they get the information.
Yeah.
But, you know, a lot of the time it's a really hard conversation to broach for parents. And so I think that's probably, we're all aware of that, and why we chose to author these books is because it really can help facilitate the conversation and, you know, help parents that might be struggling and giving them some language for their child to know what they can do to be safe.
Yeah, I would completely agree. And then Eliza, you mentioned yours is in illustration stage and finding an illustrator and working on that. And I think you put some of your contact information as well. So if you want to, yes, yep. So if you want to kind of connect with Eliza and follow her journey and hopefully eventually see when her book gets published, because I think that is a real unique book that a lot of us, whether we're parents or practitioners, and I've had the privilege of reading Eliza's book and helping her on her journey, that it is needed, and there's vocabulary and just the whole process of what it's like to be in a child advocacy center and courtroom, and it's going to be well needed within for many parents will find it a valuable resource. So I do kind of want to ask, that leads to the next question, and Megan kind of touched on it a little bit there, but how can a parent or a caregiver use a book to talk about a tough topic other than simply reading it? Like, what would you recommend? We choose a book, we read through it, but what else do we do so that we can get, as a parent or caregiver, can get that conversation started, and get those, get the point across, or, kind of fill that void, or, find that information sharing with our kids. Do you have any tips or suggestions for parents and caregivers? And anybody who'd like to answer, feel free to chime in.
Hey,
Please, Kimberly. Yeah.
Sure. So I recommend with parents that when you're broaching a tough topic, my Instagram handle is Tough Topics Mom. So we're always talking about tough topics. And I recommend that you just come at it very gradually, piece by piece. So my teaching background, I instruct the parents that I work with to, okay, take my book and just do a picture walk. Look at the pictures, notice the flags, notice the expressions on the characters, and just lightly touch the book. Notice the characters, notice the fonts, notice the words. Maybe there are some things that you will just start talking about like organically. But when you read a book like mine, or really any of these books, I think you have to be very calm and careful and be selective, because if you were to read my book like every day for 2 weeks in a row, you'd probably scare your kids. You want to just like take it piece by piece and make it light, clear, and comfortable, and all about communication. And I say with little kids to especially focus on their feelings. So if somebody is not feeling comfortable about reading a chapter, then just skip it or go to another section or talk about something else. And I really like encouraging kids to ask questions, and do, in my book, there's a lot of what if scenarios. And so that's really great for young kids to just start asking questions and start role playing and start modeling things. it doesn't have to be very scary at all when you just make it normal to talk about your body and to talk about these situations and start early. So.
Anybody else want to add to that?
Sure. I'll just say from my class, the three main things that I wanted parents to take away and be able to give to their kids is an awareness that sexual abuse exists. And so that's just having children know that sometimes people want to do something kind of strange and they want to look at or touch a kid's private parts or make them look at or touch their private parts. And if that ever happens, I want you to know that you can come and talk to me. The second thing is that secrets are not safe. And the third thing is that they're the boss of their body, and to be able to talk to a parent or speak up or whatever they can do if somebody makes their body feel uncomfortable. And so I really tackled it in kind of a much broader way because I think that that includes a lot of the grooming behaviors. And so, you know, rather than just focusing in on touches of private parts, you know, I would want my child to tell me if their teacher was giving them a foot rub in class, right? That would be kind of weird and strange. And so, you know, I kind of come at it from that angle. And really through the reading of this book, that it gives the parents all three of those things. You know, it allows the child to know that they really are fully the boss of their body, and to help parents recognize situations that we might say that to our kids, but yet do things to contradict it. Like just stand in any mall line at Christmas and see children sitting on Santa's lap crying their heads off. And everybody's taking the pictures and posting them about how they're not the boss of their body.
Yeah.
So I say that subtly in the book, like, remember when your sister, and so my book is like a conversation between a mom and their child. And the child's kind of like, I can't be in charge of anything. And the mom's helping the child know, actually, you are the boss of your body, right? Remember when your sister didn't want to sit on Santa's lap. And I said, okay, you're the boss of your body. You don't have to. And so I'm kind of coaching parents as I give the kids the same information, but I really try to kind of stand back and look at all of the ways that, you know, of course it would be included if the child was sexually abused. And I do talk specifically, you know, I'm not afraid to mention sexual abuse in the book. But really 90% of the book is about all other ways that children are the boss of their body when it comes to like eating broccoli.
Right. That's important too. You got to start somewhere. Yeah. Yep.
So one common thread that both Kimberly and Megan mentioned was having the conversation early and doing it often. So it isn't just a one and done conversation. We read a book about it when my child was 2 years old or 3 years old, 4 years old. That's it. It's one of those things where you integrate this conversation into daily life. This is mommy's body. That's your body. Mommy doesn't want you to jump on my body right now. So you can integrate body safety tips and things into your child's daily conversation or your daily lives and make it a natural conversation. But certainly you definitely use a children's book to introduce the conversation if you're uncomfortable, but have conversations early and often is what I say.
That. Yep. Perfect. That's
Yeah,
great.
thank you for saying that like that, because that's the message I always give parents is like, this is an ongoing conversation. That one-time talk that's really awkward and uncomfortable, that's the sex talk that they'll get like in puberty. Like that, you really just sit down and kind of give them the nuts and bolts. But yeah, this is just something that is just part of parenting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to echo what everyone has said. I like the idea of reading a children's book on body safety because it does help guide the conversation. And we know, okay, I need to talk to my child, but how? What do I say? And so the books can help guide you with the child-friendly language and in age-appropriate ways. So for an example, one of my nephews, when he was around 6, he was playing out in the neighborhood, and a neighborhood boy friend decided to drop his pants and flash him. And my nephew's reaction was, run. He's running. He says, get away from me. You're showing me your private parts. And what if that had been a 10-year-old boy or a 16-year-old teenager or a 40-year-old man? And in that situation, it didn't matter because he had been trained in a child-friendly, age-appropriate way that private stay private.
Yep.
I will say that this education came to me in a very different way than a very formal thing. What happened to me was that my brother in 2016 took a darkness to light type of seminar. And then he called me up and said, my kids were 2 and 4 at the time. And he called me up and said, oh my goodness, you have to, like, I just learned something. And he basically just laid it out to me really basically on the phone. Like, this is what you need to tell your kids: private parts, using anatomically correct terms, not listing the safe adults. And he gave it to me like really fast. And he's like, get off the phone and talk to your kids right now. And in hindsight, I wondered, like, did he have a funny feeling about my husband at the time? And I asked him this morning, and he said, yes, I did. And I also thought that every parent should have this information. So I'm sharing this with everybody I know. So I promptly got off the phone with my brother, not having had any formal training, any of these books I wish I had had some of these books that you all have published or are writing. And I sat my 2-year-old and my 4-year-old down right there, had the conversation with them. 6 months later, my daughter disclosed to me that her father was sexually abusing her. And that led to the whole trial and 2.5 years and everything. But so my thing is, I say even just grabbing the informal cards and sitting down with the kids and just talking to them very openly about it is my way. And that's been very effective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess I would say, from my perspective, and I think, Megan, this was maybe your second point, kind of talking about that secrecy and, making sure that there isn't secrecy behind anything, and I think for us, my husband and I, who experienced this happening with a mentor that essentially groomed us as parents to believe that they had the best interests of, our child in mind, and just, had our child keeping secrets. And so, while we had an open relationship and conversation with that child and all of our other children, I think the difficulty really, or the challenge became, the grooming process and those secrets, where it was more important for our child to keep that a secret than for our child to share that with us. And so I think that's why it's important to have conversations, not just about body safety, but, also when it gets to the point where somebody's saying, oh, you can't tell anybody about this, that's a red flag right there. And so if, the children know that there are those types of red flags, understanding somebody that's grooming not just the child, but the parents, I think that's important as well, as parents are training or talking to their kids about, these tough topics in their body and that type of thing, and what they might encounter, especially with someone that might seem like a safe adult, somebody that's mentoring them, somebody who's supposed to be taking care of them. And so I think that would be, from my perspective, what I would share, and where I think about, well, gosh, we were pretty close to our children and had pretty open conversation, but it was that aspect of grooming that we didn't really quite understand that really is what resulted in this abuse taking place. Yeah.
Kimberly King, did you want to add something?
Yeah, on the topic of secrets, just because we were just mentioning that, kids do get very confused with secrets and surprises. And so there is a resource that my illustrator and I put together on YouTube. If anybody wanted to check it out, it's a cute little age appropriate for children video. It's called Red Flag Secrets, and it's animated with kid actors, and it's very gentle and easy to understand, but like breaks down, why we don't keep secrets, what's the difference between a secret and a surprise, and then how tricky people can actually use secrets as like testing secrets. And the next thing you know, you get down a road of real serious problems and big secrets. So I'll put that in the chat too, but I just wanted to mention it before I forgot it.
Thank you. So many great resources, but this is, I'm sorry, Caitlin,
Tracy, can I mention, just one more thing that I, think is really important. We talk about talking to our kids, our children when they're little, but it's very important too to continue to have those conversations as they move into their teen years, because for us, the abuse happened to one of our teens. And so we think that, those conversations as they're happening as children, it's even that much more critical to continue to have those conversations as teens. When we see, some of the things that even happen to athletes out there, Larry Nassar specifically, and some of the things that happened at Penn State, I think those conversations need to continue through their teenage years, because child sexual abuse ends up looking a little different as they grow up and grow older. And I think about even Anthony Edwards, what he shared at the previous conference, about his abuse through his mentor. And so some children experience it when they're young, but it happens just as much as they get into their teenage years, and they're confused and trying to find themselves an identity and all that, and it gives somebody an opportunity to come in and abuse them at that point as well. So I don't want to miss sharing that, because for us that's where it happened.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say is, there are all these great resources and books, for the young kids, and it seems easy to kind of grab and gravitate and start those conversations young, but you get into those. Well, I mean, even young girls are starting puberty and starting their periods, in 4th and 5th grade. And then you get into the middle school and the high school years, and you can't pick up a cute little book anymore, so do you recommend, and I didn't prepare you for this particular question, so if you can't think of anything off the top of your head or you need a minute, I understand, but do you have any resources or recommend something for those those adolescent years, and maybe it's not a thing, maybe it's just advice that you would give to parents and caregivers who are at that stage with their children?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's one that, when they are moving into those teenage years, you can have, that family time where you're reading a book at bedtime and that type of thing, or, just kind of being able to gather around the table. And so you have to take those opportunities that present themselves. And sometimes, as busy as we can be with, work and house, things, it's so important to capitalize on those opportunities when there is that space to have these kind of out of nowhere conversations. And so really it's about keeping that conversation flowing. And although they're older and they need their space as teenagers, it's really always being watchful and being mindful. I think that for me, I'm always watching from a distance now, as, the rest of the 3 kids, continue growing up, because it's our oldest that experienced the child sexual abuse. And so, just staying close enough, although they want their space, mom and dad are going to give them space, but we're watching and we're being mindful of that. And also just checking in. How you doing? What's how's school, anything that's, tough, anything, just keeping that open dialogue. I think that's what's important. And that trust, between parent and child is really what's going to make that difference, where a child is going to come and talk to you about, those difficult things. I think about, all my children and the one, the opportunities they have when they're experiencing a challenge, or they're feeling like, somebody said something to me at school that didn't feel good, didn't feel right, and I'm bothered by it. I'm having a hard time with it. And so that open dialogue that I've been creating with them at every opportunity is really what's, helping to make sure that, okay, there's this open communication. And if something were to happen that made them uncomfortable, that is going to come about in our regular conversations. And so, so I think, like I said, staying close enough, but giving them that space, but really just being watchful. And obviously now, having learned, and understand grooming and all those pieces, I'm definitely more aware and alert. And so, I guess the other thing I would say as I talk about grooming is understanding that as a parent, understanding what grooming is, and the signs of grooming, because when I look back, hindsight is always 20/20. And so when I look back and I think about, that happened, and I think about even Stephen Mills's book and how, how he talks about being groomed. And so all of those signs were there, but as a parent, I guess I wasn't as aware of those and just felt like, oh, this is somebody mentoring my child who's really interested in their growth and their development. And they were grooming us just as much as they were grooming our child. And so being aware of that is also something that's important, and finding resources that help parents understand what does grooming look like, especially at the teenage years.
That's really important.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to add to that?
I was just going to say real quick for the Stay Down and Tell books, I like to take a boundaries approach, which is a lifelong skill. You know, when they're preschool, we talk about their personal space and, you know, hold up your arms and make a bubble. But boundaries, doesn't matter what age we are, being able to understand when to say no and being able to communicate that and empower them and give them a vision of where they want to go and not just what to stay away from, but becoming I guess, holistic or a whole person in the sense of knowing your human agency and that you have boundaries and you can say yes and you can say no.
I like that.
I-
Eliza.
I would say one more thing I'd like to add to that, and this is an
Sure.
ongoing conversation with my kids who are now 8 and 10, is I tend to be very suspicious of everybody. And there's a fine line, not to make everybody, you know, scary. But my kids actually seem like they have a more healthy sense of somebody being strange or suspicious than, because I think I may be more, you know, more on guard because of it. But I think they're also realizing that not everybody, I think it's really important to also make sure that you know, the kids understand that not everybody is a pedophile. Because, you know, you can have that lens after something happens to you. So I think it's sort of a fine line that you have to balance somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And I think it's important to make sure that parents who are coming at this now with maybe those middle school aged kids to think that they didn't, they haven't been doing this since they were little. So like, there's no hope. Or like, I'm not going to get this right, or I'm not going to be able to build this trust, you know, with my kids in a short period of time. You know, you have to start somewhere and just having that awareness and starting a conversation and starting small, noticing things. You know, it's not going to happen overnight, but you have to start somewhere. And by no means should you feel ashamed as a parent. I think sometimes there's so much shame that we put on parents and caregivers that, you know, you've been doing it wrong or you didn't do it this way from the beginning. So, you know, that's it. You know, that's not the case. You know, we're all doing the best we can with what we have. I mean, we're just coming off of a collective trauma of a pandemic. And, you know, we just, you know, you have to start somewhere. So start these conversations, take an interest, you know, do what, you know, I do. I have a 16 and an 18-year-old. So I am right there too. I feel everybody's pain, you know, having those older kids. What I want to know too, now, sometimes when we do have the younger kids, you know, they want to read the book all the time. You know, they get their favorite books and, you know, they want to read it every night. How do you recommend, or what can you recommend to kind of change it up if it's a book really even about a tough topic like this? You know, do you have any like activities with intention or ways to break up a book or kind of dive into something a little bit? Or, you know, how can you do that? So if they, you know, want to read about boundaries every night, you know, what can you do to break up the monotony as a parent, so you're not reading the same book over and over again? Or if you are, how can you make it interesting, I guess? And I know some of the teachers in the group might have something to say about that.
I'm going to say a little bit. I think it's great. I have a 3-year-old and he's in that stage of wanting to read the same book over and over.
Mhm.
But it's great because we notice something different every time we read it. did you notice that there's a bear in the corner? Or, oh my goodness, that's Spider-Man on the wall. So sometimes it's less about the difficult subject and more about the things we're opening our senses to, what's going on the page, the illustrations, and other things that are happening, not just the story. So that's something that you can do, is notice different things. You can, do a word search, or, a search for, some sort of bear. I spy a bear in the corner, or something like that, to make it fun and less about the topic and not so heavy, but also making it engaging for the child.
Oh.
So that, from a mom of a 3-year-old, that's where I come from. He reaches for the same book every night, but we notice something different, and we love it.
I love that. That's a great idea.
And I would just add, as a kindergarten teacher, when you read maybe a small section on, how to say the word no, you can write the word in a million ways. You can do a journal entry, you can draw a picture, you can make a painting, you can sing a song. So you can extend every little topic, 100 different ways to cover all the different learning styles that we have in our classrooms and in our families. So get very creative, arts and crafts, and just make it light, make it fun. It doesn't have to be, scary, this topic. It really,
Yeah.
I can speak to the progression and the repetition as well by telling a quick story. My friend Tiffany read a Say No and Tell Daxton Dolphin book to her son. He was around 6 or 7. Afterwards, she put it in his library, so it was on his bookshelf. And then one morning, he began choosing to bring the Say No and Tell book to read in the car on the way to school. And he began asking questions, and they were having conversations. So as an educator, we call this scaffolding. We offer that total support in the beginning with the new learning of the concepts by reading aloud side by side. And as the child moves toward understanding and the natural conversations grow, you can begin to connect to the real life and the personal experiences. So I see this progression of ownership as a good sign. However, when I took the darkness to light training, or the stewards of light, is that what's called?
Stewards of children. Yep.
Stewards of children, thank you.
Yeah.
I remember a lady in there, a young lady, sharing her story of how her parents, and she had learned about what body safety was, but her dad was abusing her. And she said, nobody ever asked me, has this happened to you? And so I think that's maybe how you differentiate of, okay, is this just a deeper learning for this child, or is maybe there's something going on, is to pause and ask, do you know of anyone that this has happened to? And has this ever happened to you?
Oh, I love that. Yeah, because you don't want to think of it as a red flag, but you can use it as a conversation starter almost, and to let them know that you're a safe person to talk to. And even if they're like, no, that didn't, well, I want you to know, if it ever did, you can always come and tell me. Even opening that door or planting those seeds can be really important.
Yeah, I love that, Kimberly. I think about when I would read to my kids when they were younger, and reading those kind of picture book storybooks, and how I would just stop and ask them questions. And it really does get them engaged, and they're so little. And so they want to engage with the content. They want to be able to answer questions and maybe go deeper with it, because that innocence that they have, they're just so open and free flowing. And so I think that it really is a great way to really go deeper into some of that, and maybe surface, if there is somebody that is experiencing that, because the kids love that. They love it when, we get to, a page, and it might be a page turner page, but then you stop and ask a question, and it just really gets them excited and really even more into the book.
Or you throw something off. Like, I remember reading Make Way for Ducklings, and all those ducks' names, Mac, Whack, Quack, and I would just stop and I would just say, and the baby ducklings, and my kids would get mad at me, because they would be like, no, mom, it's, and so if you as the adult, and the parent or caregiver kind of throw something off in it too, and kind of check to make sure that they're listening or understanding. So yeah, there are ways that you can certainly make it engaging, so that you're not going crazy when it's the 100th time that they want the same book read. And whether it's a book about body safety, or, prevention, or whatever it might be, or it's, Make Way for Ducklings, there are ways that you can do that, because books are, such an important tool, whether it is,
you know, early in their life or, you know, later in their lives. It's just really important. So I want to know, do any of you have anything? Well, we know Caitlin and Eliza have books in process. Anybody else have anything in the works that we should be on the lookout for? I know Kimberly, you do, Kimberly King. Yeah.
I've got two things coming. So the I Said No book is being updated, edited, and published by Brandy Lane Publishing. So I have a new publisher, and we're getting a new look, an overhaul, and just going to change some of the language, because as you learn about this topic, you realize that some of your definitions have changed since 2010. And so like, I've really focused on like helping in the new I Said No book to define what a safe adult is, because in my previous edition, I'm like, well, it's your teacher. I kind of like overgeneralized. And now I'm more along the lines of saying, well, it's a safe adult is somebody who would never ask you to keep a secret, who would never break a body boundary. So we're changing that up. And then even more exciting than that is there is going to be a parent guide coming out with Griffin Publishing called Empowering Caregivers on Body Safety. And that's coming out in November, which is kind of like my life's work all in a book for caregivers, parents, teachers, anybody who cares for children. So that's coming, but probably October, November.
Okay, good to know. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything?
Yeah, the other thing I guess I would share is, the book that I'm working on specifically right now, is meant for moms in those early days, and like I said, I journaled for about 40 days. The first month I think is the hardest, and as my husband would say, it was like impossible. That first month was impossible for us, just navigating, reading a story at bedtime. For me, I thought I would never read a story to my, boys again, because, the trauma was just like, how am I supposed to move forward? But anyhow, I'm even thinking about now, you fast forward years later. So now I'm writing this book in the early days, but the other thought that I have that I'm starting to think through is, we think about healing and healing not being linear. So a mom who picks up a book in her early days, that's a book that's going to meet her there. But then what happens a couple years later, because healing isn't linear. So, maybe something that you work through on day 6 of your journey of trauma is going to come back in day 145, and my book ends at day 40. And so, it's going to be more, that early book is going to be, kind of day by day. And it's not a book that you're supposed to read kind of from cover to cover. It's not really chapters. It's more like in days, because I felt like in those early days, that's what I needed, something quick. I wasn't going to pick up a book and read through even a whole chapter. And so that's how I'm working on this first book. But the second book I'm already thinking about is kind of like, let's fast forward and let me talk about my journey. And that's more like a chapter book. And that's really going to talk about, the healing process itself, through the years and what that looks like. And then even, just like, and Eliza, I heard you talk about, justice, and for us, what that looks like or doesn't look like right now. So how do you deal with that challenge of, the wait for something like that to come full circle? And so that's the second, book. And Tracy, you gave me an idea as we're sitting here talking, and you're saying, what book is available out there for, as you're navigating the middle school years, the teen years? I've read so many parenting books, but to take you through different phases. I even wrote a paper a few months ago. I'm pursuing my master's. And so it was on this topic of, parenting your children through, different stages, infancy through childhood, through their teenage years, and obviously young adults. But in all the research I did and all the books that I had to read to write this 27-page paper, there was nothing that really talked specifically to this. How do you talk to, your middle schoolers, your high school kids, about child sexual abuse and the possibility of that? And so how do you have those conversations? So you gave me an idea. I mean, there's another space that's just void and it's empty. And, and talking, I'll just say this, talking to an editor at a book retreat back in the fall, one of the things she specifically said to encourage me was, if there's a space that there's nothing written, we need, as editors, as publishing houses, that's where we need to fill that gap. And so if you've got something in you that there's nothing written on or very little written, put it out there. And so I just say that because now here, just being on this phone call and realizing, that there isn't that, gosh, I walk through that as a mom to a teenager who experienced that. And so anyhow, so that's, I guess, what to expect.
There you go.
Even following, that initial book to help moms in their early days.
Nice.
I'll go next.
Yeah,
I'm
please.
really excited. I'm working on, so as you can see, the first 2 books of my series, Where Hands Go, are up. And then the second book in the series, which is the second tier, the purple, in soft launch right now, is the 3rd book in the series, Where Hands Go, The Power of No, because no is a superpower. And I want to teach children that they all have this power within them to use and where and how to say no. So it's got beautiful illustrations here. It's called Where Hands Go, The Power of No. And like all of my books, thank you. Like all of my books, it contains a parent introduction. It's about information and facts about child sexual abuse, as well as resources in the back of the book, as well as questions to ask your child while reading the book to them. So this is available in soft launch on Amazon, as well as my website, ksdiggs.com.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, Kimberly, I know, I'm like, mark that one down. I've got everybody else's now. Yeah, to go and get more. There is one question I do want to, somebody has put in the Q&A, and I'll let maybe one of our experts address it, or I could address it too, coming from darkness to light. But so if you're reading with your child, or you've kind of prepared them and you've had some of these conversations, how should parents be prepared to respond or react if their child does disclose?
Believe them.
Believe them.
Believe them. Yes.
I believe you. It's not your fault. Is really what that communication needs to be. That's the most important thing they can hear.
Yeah, I would say remain calm. And gosh, thank you so much for telling me. It sounds like that person was breaking a rule. And you know what? I know people that can help us figure out what to do about that. And so I am going to call some helpers and find some people that we can talk to, because you really don't want to grill and ask tons of questions, even though you're dying to know all this information, but that potentially could make a child shut down by feeling like they're incredible, right? Like if you're being really questioned on something, then you start to think that the person might doubt you. So really just setting it aside and thanking them for telling, and that the other person clearly broke a rule, and there are experts in your communities, in children's advocacy centers all over the country, that this is their job to help you through this. And so just letting your child know, we're going to find people that it's their job, because this happens to a lot of kids. And so there are people that it's their job to help us with this.
Excellent.
I would say that's a great question, Tracy. And one of the challenges that we found was that I immediately reported it as soon as my daughter who was 2.5, disclosed, started dealing with the police and the district attorneys. And one of the challenges we found was that the district attorney's office wasn't going to take action. And we waited and waited and waited, and there was physical evidence, and there were disclosures to SANE nurses, and the forensic interview had disclosures, and nobody was taking action. So another thing that I work on is advocacy, like advocating for your case. I'll make a really long story short. I ended up petitioning the attorney general to take over my case, because the district attorney's office just was overwhelmed and couldn't handle it. And so we did end up getting the justice we were seeking, but it led us to, I will say that one of the questions I got over and over and over from my kids is, what are we supposed to say, at the trial? And of course, I mean, you can't say anything, literally cannot say anything. And so I came up with a mantra, which was approved by prosecutors, which was, I cannot tell you what to say. All I can tell you is to be brave, tell the truth, and tell what you remember, and you will be okay. And literally for 2.5 years, that was my mantra to the children. And so if the kids do disclose, it's really important to just make sure. And then the last thing I'll say is the defense attorney asked my son on the stand, did your mother tell you what to say? And his response was yes. She told me to tell the truth. And so I cannot drive that home enough, that if your kids or a child, you know, or someone is going through this, you know, not talking about it around them, not discussing the case, because, you know, those are, it's really precious, and it's really, you know, it's delicate. So that's my piece about that.
Thank you for sharing that. And that needs to be on the adults' shoulders to handle all of that stuff, and just be so supportive of those children, and just be there and love on them and do what you can for them. And you know, you cry at night, and, you know, behind closed doors, and you know, the mama bear or daddy bear comes out and does all those things that they need to. But yeah, that's why I know with Darkness to Light, you know, it's an adult's responsibility to, you know, prevent child sexual abuse. And these books are phenomenal tools, and we need to arm, you know, our kids and have these conversations and give them the tools too. But you know, it's, you know, we're the ones writing the books, making policy, advocating, and doing all those things. So we're over time. I just want to thank you all for such an amazing conversation. Those of you who are here on the you know, the webinar with us, go to Child Safety Pledge, take the pledge to protect, sign up for our newsletter if you haven't already. You know, we'll have more of these parents chat. And if you have any ideas for future conversations, does not have to always be around child sexual abuse and prevention. You know, there are a lot of safety concerns. You know, just learning how to talk to our kids sometimes is one of the tools that we need, or we just need to talk as parents, and that might just be enough, and not do a webinar, but do a, you know, just a virtual meeting where we can talk and just talk about anything. But please, you know, stay in touch, stay connected with Darkness to Light and with Child Safety Pledge. And authors, thank you. Best wishes. You are always welcome. And please, please, please get their resources and use them. You know, go to their websites and get their books, or, you know, write reviews on Amazon and just promote, because a lot of people don't know that these books are out there to use, and they are. You know, you get invited to a baby shower or, you know, a birthday or something, give a book and give one of these books. You know, don't be afraid to do that. So thank you all again, and enjoy your evening, and we shall see you all very soon. Thanks, everybody.